Today I'm going to talk about how I got into contact with Drokaal. You know, that extra little voice in my head that's been there over the past few years to help me through the rough spots. Yep, I'm finally going to introduce my spirit guide. If you aren't familiar with what one is, please feel free to check out the video description box over that way. If you're too lazy to look, I would be. I'll nutshell it like this. A spirit guide is another being that hangs around and helps you out through the sticky spots. Think of them as a guardian angel, kind of a term everyone's familiar with, I'm sure, or your own personal Jiminy Cricket. It is, in essence, an extra little voice of reason that's always available to you, always around to help you out. It's that little presence that reminds you that you're not ever so alone as you may think. But in a good way. Now then, everyone has a spirit guide. In fact, most often each person has several who come and go throughout your life as lessons are needed and subsequently learned. And sometimes the same guide can fill in for many roles and lessons over several lifetimes, which is the case with me and mine. Now, it actually took me a while to clue into his presence, seeing as I didn't even learn about spirit guides until after I'd begun this whole journey of mine in the first place that began so long ago thanks to a little book sitting on my aunt's shelf one boring evening. I was about 19, and I'd been reading everything I could get my grubby little hands on for a few years when I finally started asking questions about spirit guides. What they were about, how you got one, how you could know when they were around, and of course, as the answers started trickling in, I wanted more and more and more to get in touch with mine. Thankfully, probably synchronistically, I knew someone who happened to be a practicing Wiccan, and she took me through a rite to attract my spirit guide. Now, such a rite is kind of like switching on the ringer to your phone. It's a declaration that you're finally listening and looking or otherwise trying to get in touch with the being or beings that have been around all this time already. Of course, the hard part was the expectation. I imagined some glittering flash of light and he'd be there. My very own panther or wolf or lion or dolphin or other cool, deeply symbolic and full of grace guide. 'Cause hey, it's just cool. But instead, when the rite was done, she packed up her salt and candles and put away her dagger and mirrors and said, "Well, good night." Wait, what? What do you mean good night? Where is he? It's not that I wanted or expected instant results. I was told like everything else it would take time. I knew it would take time. 5 minutes. Maybe it was a meditation. Why? Because I was really bad at listening. The whole point of this process is learning to listen and, more importantly, to recognize what you're listening to. Instead, I was too busy fantasizing about what my guide would be. I know! It's a panther! They're all sleek and mysterious, full of a hunter's mystique. Or maybe a lion or a wolf. Heck, maybe even some dolphin or something, I don't know. I could live with a fish, I guess. But a couple weeks later, and Christmas came and went, and the centerpiece of which was a bisque dragon statue, bisque meaning unpainted, by my aunt, who seems to always be in tune with, well, everything. Way more than I am. But anyways, I was inexplicably excited about this little gift. But of course, little did I realize, this was Drokaal's first concerted attempt to cuff me upside the face and get my attention. One of the stipulations to the gift was that I had to paint it myself. In fact, that was a good portion of its charm to me. I tromped into the store where she got it from, smiling and eager with the statue under my arm and without any idea of what to do with it. I'd attempted dry brushing a Santa statue once before. In fact, that was what I gave my parents for Christmas. But I have to admit, it did not turn out so well. I actually kind of wish I had it with me so I could show all of you to contrast how this one turned out. Alas, it's locked in my mom's vault of treasures because she's a sentimental sort. But trust me, it was ugly. Ugh. Anyways, I sat down and started looking through the magazines for ideas on what colors to use. And, well, they all sucked. As far as I was concerned, none of them looked right. The colors were gaudy, or they were just all wrong. They didn't look at all natural or like they belonged. Me and my infinite knowledge of zero at the time, you'd think I'd see those opinions as odd. But I was left with grabbing seemingly random colors and mixing them myself. And, oh, wait a second. I'll show you what it came to turn out like. I forgot to grab it. Ugh. Okay, now then, as I was saying, here's what turned out. I'm not quite sure how well the camera's going to pick it up, but as you can see, I think it turned out alright. It survived over the years pretty well. It's just a couple little chips here and there from moves. But as you can see, an unnecessarily high amount of detail for my second project ever attempting that sort of thing. Now then, where was I? Ah, yes. Now you'd think that by comparing this with, you know, a Santa that looked like it was dropped in the paint bucket one too many times, I'd discover something was up. You know, because I had no idea where the colors came from. I just mixed them and say, hey, that's right, that's what belongs there. But no, I just stuck the statue proudly on my desk and went back to wondering what kind of cool animal my guide would be. This happened on into and throughout the summer, you know. I ran across books on dragons, old movies, paintings, cloud shapes even. They were freaking everywhere. Finally, a friend was introducing me to, you know, those online play-by-post role-playing games. He was a D&D buddy that I hung out with while I was going to college, so, you know, go fig, right? Makes sense. Anyways, he and his girlfriend were starting up a board based on a computer game called Horizons, and he mentioned to me that one of the character types that you could be was a dragon. You know, knock knock, hello Ken. I thought, what the heck, let's try something new. Normally I played ordinary things, you know, like your typical elven sorcerer and that sort of thing. By this time it was mid-November, and, you know, time for the household Christmas party. Considering that it was a bunch of old people who like to golf and talk about golfing and then do some more golfing and maybe watch a movie about golf, I decided I would just hang out in bed with my laptop and just started designing this character I was going to play. More knocking. Immediately the image of the statue popped into my head, along with a host of details and personality and, well, basically a life of its own. As I started writing, I kind of zoned out, and what followed was 3 hours of a mental haze that ended with the completion of a short story I didn't even realize I was writing. It was like it had been narrated to me. It was, you know, of course. But finally I was hearing a pounding at my door, and I wondered. The door opened a crack as I sat and began to meditate, asking questions that I thought belonged. You know, are you my guide? Who are you? Have I gone off the deep end? Which is one that obviously belongs, and so on. You know, it was strange. Even before I could organize my thoughts into the first of those questions, they kind of all tumbled out at once. It felt like a bubbling word salad, and, you know, answers were coming back even before the questions were completed, and it was just too fast to make sense of. Just a back and forth of information that flew in such a torrent that all I could do was let it happen and hope it'd make sense of it later. Suddenly I felt really tired. Probably because it was 4 o'clock in the morning after all by this time. But so I said, screw this shit, I'm a-going to sleep. And I shut myself off, convincing myself that I was just overtired and making all of this up. You know, one too many days of role-playing, I guess. Of course, be damned if Drokaal was going to let me close that door once it was open. For the rest of the night, I had very vague dreams. You know, the sort that you don't remember in the morning other than that they were there. They had a recurring motif of me wandering and feeling lost until a second presence appeared to bring me a sense of direction and comfort. Finally I woke up again, crawled out of the bed at, you know, the crack of noon, and to start my daily ritual. I stumbled into the bathroom, half awake, not even bothering to turn on the light, you know, completely zombified. And, of course, a couple minutes later, I was sitting there over the sink brushing my teeth when I happened to look up at the mirror. Now, in it was the bathroom, as if it was some great big long hall going out behind me, and at the far end of it was this little shape that I couldn't recognize. Of course, before I could react, it charged a glass. Now, of course, any normal time, it would probably be hilarious to see a dragon splat against the inside of a mirror. But not when it's the last thing you ever expect, let me tell you. Needless to say, spit and foam and chunkies from my mouth from the carpet on my tongue over the night, and everything else just goes flying one way, and of course I go flying backwards the other way, bouncing off a wall, landing on my butt. And then suddenly I sit up in bed. Naturally, once I get my heart to beat again, I finally decided I'd better give up on having a panther for a spirit guide. Of course, all I managed to say to my empty room at the time was, "That's not funny!" much to Drokaal's chagrin, of course. But anyways, that's about it for this one. You know, not horribly exciting, just another little link in the tail of my craziness. So, once again, I hope that you all enjoyed this little bout of mine, and I will see all of you next time.